You hear the name Hershey's and you think chocolate, right? Of course you do. But the story of the man behind the chocolate, wow. It's filled with just crushing failure, heartbreaking tragedy, but also this incredible, relentless drive that literally changed an entire industry. So let's get into it. Let's unwrap the story of how Milton Hershey went from being a penniless farm boy to, well, the undisputed king of chocolate. So where does a story like this start? You might think at the top, but nope. We're starting at the absolute bottom. The year is 1881. A totally broke Milton Hershey has just come home after his second business failed. He goes to his uncle's, hat in hand, asking for a loan. And they don't just say no, they actually insult him. They throw him out. He has literally nothing. But that moment, that total humiliation, that's what's going to fuel one of the greatest comebacks in business history. Seriously. So to really get what drove this guy, we've got to go back, way back to the beginning. See, his resilience, it wasn't just built on those business failures. No, it was forged in something much tougher, the fires of childhood poverty and just heartbreaking tragedy. I mean, his early life was just incredibly unstable. His father was this dreamer, always chasing the next get-rich-quick scheme, which meant he often just abandoned the family. They were left in extreme poverty. We're talking at times literally starving. And then, the ultimate blow. When Milton was just a boy, his little sister, Serena, died of scarlet fever.
That loss, that was the turning point. Can you imagine, at just 10 years old, seeing his mother's grief, feeling the weight of all that poverty? Milton Hershey makes this life-altering decision. He drops out of school. He is just determined to build a life where his family would never, ever have to suffer like that again. And that became his lifelong mission.
Okay, so he's got this fire inside him now, right? He sets out. But, yeah, the path to success was anything but straight. In fact, you could say it was paved with one failure after another. Just look at this pattern. At 19, he opens his first candy shop in Philly. Fails. Bankruptcy. So he tries again, this time in the super competitive market of New York City. What happens? Fails again. Another bankruptcy. I mean, come on, most people would have just given up right there. But Milton Hershey? He wasn't most people. But here's the thing. In between all those failures, he takes a job at a candy store out in Denver. And it's that's where he stumbles on the secret that would change absolutely everything for him. See, instead of using paraffin wax, which was a pretty common ingredient back then, this one shop used fresh milk. And the result? It was a richer, smoother, way more delicious caramel. He saw it, he learned it, and you better believe he memorized that process. So now, armed with this game-changing knowledge, he heads back home to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And this is where the story pivots. This is where the failures finally stop and the empire really starts to take shape. So he starts making these new fresh milk caramels, right? And they are a huge local hit. Then, out of nowhere, this massive opportunity just lands in his lap. An English importer tries them, loves the taste, and places a huge order. But there was a catch. A big one. Hershey didn't have the money to buy the ingredients to even make the candy for the order. I mean, this is straight out of a movie. Think about it. With a track record of 2 bankruptcies, this guy walks into a bank, slaps the purchase order from England down on the desk, and asks for a loan. He is betting everything, absolutely everything, on this one single chance. And somehow, he convinced them. The banker gave him the loan. A few weeks later, a check arrives from England for £500, which was a fortune at the time, worth about $65,000 today. He immediately pays off all his debts, and the Lancaster Caramel Company just explodes. Milton Hershey is finally a success. But this is where the story gets really wild, okay? He's at the absolute peak of his success. He's got a thriving million-dollar caramel business. And what does he do? He decides to risk it all on chocolate. You have to remember, back in the late 1800s, chocolate wasn't something for everyday folks. No way. It was this expensive imported luxury item from Europe. But then Hershey goes to the Chicago World's Fair, and he sees this German chocolate-making machinery in action, and a light bulb goes off. He has a vision. What if you could mass-produce chocolate and make it affordable for everyone? So now he's facing this huge choice. On one hand, you've got the Lancaster Caramel Company. It's a proven success, a guaranteed moneymaker, a sure thing. On the other hand, a massive, massive gamble on this unproven luxury product, a product whose recipe was a closely guarded Swiss secret. What would you do? Well, he makes his choice. In 1900, he sells his beloved, successful caramel company for $1 million. That's like $35 million in today's money. And he takes every single penny of it and pours it into building a brand new chocolate factory in the middle of a Pennsylvania cornfield. Talk about going all in. Okay, so he's got the factory, he's got the money, but he's still missing the most important piece of the puzzle, the recipe. See, the Swiss had perfected milk chocolate, and they were not sharing how they did it. It was a trade secret. So after years, literally years, of failed attempts, the answer comes from one of his own employees, a guy named Johnny Schmalbach, and the solution they found was almost deceptively simple. Instead of using powdered milk like the Swiss did, they used fresh condensed milk from all the local dairy farms. And then, and this is the key, they developed this unique slow warming process that didn't burn the milk. And that process, that's what created that iconic, slightly tangy flavor that we all know as Hershey's. And this number right here, this is what changed everything. He figured out how to mass produce this stable, delicious chocolate and sell it for just 5 cents, a nickel. All of a sudden, this luxury item for the rich was a treat that anyone could afford. The Hershey bar was born, and it was an absolute instant phenomenon. So, as you can imagine, Milton Hershey became fantastically wealthy. But what he did with all that money, that's what truly defines his legacy. For him, it was never just about the money. You see, he didn't just build a factory, he built an entire town around it, Hershey, Pennsylvania. And he gave his workers things that were just unheard of at the time. We're talking modern homes with electricity, great schools, hospitals, beautiful parks. He even built an amusement park and a zoo. He wasn't just building a company, he was building a community, a place where families could actually thrive. But his most personal act was still to come. He and his wife Kitty, they were never able to have children of their own. So in 1909, they used their massive fortune to do something truly extraordinary. They founded a school for orphaned boys, giving them a home and, more importantly, an education and a future they never would have had otherwise. And get this, because this is maybe the most incredible part of the whole story. To make sure that school would last forever, Milton Hershey eventually transferred the majority of his personal fortune and control of his company over to a trust just for that school. So today, that very same school controls about 40% of the Hershey Company's stock. It's one of the wealthiest schools on the entire planet. So yeah, the next time you see a Hershey's bar, maybe you'll remember the story behind it. It's really not just a piece of candy, is it? It's a symbol of surviving poverty, of overcoming failure again and again, and of this powerful belief that true success, well, it's not measured by what you build for yourself, but by what you give back to others.